welcome back to Summer Skye Gardens. So if you're new to my channel, I live in Spring, Texas, which is South Texas, right north of Houston. And I have a farm in Splendora, which is about 20 minutes from my house. We're in zone 9A. So I have a large backyard garden that I like to share about, growing lots of different things. And then this year, my husband and I bought the property in Splendora to start our cut flower farm. So if you've seen any past videos on my channel, you will have seen stuff about growing vegetables and fruit and landscaping and pollinator gardens, and that's stuff that I'm still interested in and I'm getting back into and I will be sharing about. But I'm also sharing about our journey of kind of building up the farm property, starting our cut flower production, and most recently starting our you-pick flower field, which I hope to open up mid-September. So I'll link a few of those videos down below if you want to go check them out. Today's video, I am excited to share what I'm going to be growing for my fall vegetable garden. Now, it's never too early to start planning for, your next round of things that you're going to grow. So right now it's kind of getting to the end of July. Our fall planting where I am at kind of starts in September, definitely ramps up in October, and then kind of goes to November. So it's good to kind of get a heads up and figure out what you want to grow. So I'm going to take you through how I'm going to be going about planting everything and everything that I'm going to be growing and planting in the fall, overwintering, and then continuing on into the spring until I flip over the beds yet again. Now, if you're new to gardening or you haven't grown a lot of stuff before, the main thing that you want to start with is looking at your different temperatures and weather patterns throughout the year. So I would advise you go through and you make a calendar of all the months, January through December, and you go find the average low and high temperature for that month for your area, write it down, and then go find the average amount of rainfall. Make a little chart, that's what I've done, and that will kind of tell you your different seasons throughout the year, which will guide what you plant when. Most places have kind of two shoulder seasons that are very similar and then two extreme seasons. So for instance, where my garden is in Spring, Texas, we have a really hot summer, a little bit longer. We have warm shoulder seasons, kind of spring and fall are very warm. And then a very mild, cool winter that's usually pretty short. Now, it's good to know this because certain vegetables are going to do well with certain temperatures. So for instance, in the fall, I always like to plant carrots. Carrots kind of like a warm to cooler temperature. So I like to start them in the fall when it's still kind of warm, get them germinated, and then they will grow throughout the winter. The colder temperatures make them really sweet and taste a lot better, and then they'll be ready to harvest kind of at the end of winter, beginning of spring. They do not like hot temperatures. They will not grow well and they will taste bitter. So that kind of guides you on, okay, when can I grow carrots during the year? I can plant them in the fall, harvest in the spring, but that's really the only time, because if you were to plant in the spring, then they would try to grow over the summer and they would not taste very good. And sometimes it's just trial and error. Like for instance, with carrots, I have found that it takes a lot longer for them to grow here just because we don't have a very cold winter. So it might say, oh, growing time for this particular variety is 90 days. Well, for us, it might take 120 days. So that's just going to come from experience and kind of just tracking things. I always advise people to have a journal and a planner where you can write down little notes to yourself, what's working, what's not, how are things looking, is there anything you should have done differently? And you can also write down times like, okay, today I planted my carrots, so I know 3 months from now I should be expecting carrots, maybe a little bit longer, but it's a good way to remember, you know, when you planted something, what did you plant, where is it in your garden? Because if it's not growing well or you have an issue, then it'll be a lot easier than just trying to remember off the top of your head. So once you figured out your seasons, then that'll kind of guide you on which, you know, vegetables grow in which season, so what you're going to plant throughout the year. And then you can just go through and write down, make a list of things that you're interested in growing, things that you like to eat, your family likes to eat, and that'll kind of tell you what you want to grow. You can start to look at the different varieties. There's tons of very reputable seed companies online. I prefer to get most of my seeds from either Johnny Select Seeds, Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. Those are probably my top two for like vegetable seeds. I get a lot of other cut flower seeds from other companies, but as far as vegetable seeds go, I feel like both of those are really, really good. And I'll take you through the different vegetables and varieties that I'll be growing here in a minute if you want some good ideas. Now, once you have your list down of everything that you want to be growing for your fall vegetable garden, then it's good to look through and see which ones can be direct seeded versus which ones do well as transplants. So for instance, broccoli. So it takes a lot longer to grow broccoli. It's a large plant. If I want to have this, you know, earlier and take advantage of the cooler winter, I'm gonna start this indoors. It does really well as a transplant. A lot of the bigger plants do well as transplants. So my broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, mustards, those kind of larger crops, you can start indoors about 4 to 6 weeks before you want to actually plant them outside. And that'll give you kind of a jump start on the season. Now you could certainly go out and just direct seed broccoli, but it'll take a lot longer. So I like starting seeds indoors. I have a nice setup for that. If you're interested in trying this, I'll link a video below about how I do it and my setup. But it's really easy. Don't be scared. And you know, those are good things to start ahead of time. On the other hand, some things like to be direct seeded because it's hard to transplant them. So think about your root vegetables, so your carrots, turnips, beets, radishes. You know, those are growing down in the soil underground. If you started them as a seed indoors and then tried to move that little seedling into the ground, it's gonna be really hard because that vegetable is all root. There's not a whole lot of up top. So they don't like to be transplanted. They like to just be direct seeded. So I would just advise you, you know, go through your list of vegetables and just look up, hey, you know, is it recommended to direct seed this? Is it recommended to transplant this? But good rule of thumb is the larger ones can typically be transplanted and started earlier. The smaller vegetables, typically you're just gonna plant direct seed outside. Now, just a quick tip on bed preparation. If you have anything that's left over from the summer, you want to go ahead and clear that out. You might want to add some compost or fertilizers to your beds before you get to planting. I will link another video below where I show you exactly what I add to my raised beds. I grow in raised beds where I live just because our soil in the ground has a lot of clay and it's really hard to grow stuff. So I like having a raised bed that's a designated space. I can control what goes in it, and I have found everything I grow does really, really well. So think about your space. Do you need to amend your soil at all? Add any kind of things in there? Check out that video below and you can see what all I add to my beds. All right, so I'm gonna take you through what all I'm gonna be growing, and I'll give you kind of a few tips on either the different kinds of vegetables or the different varieties. So firstly, I'm gonna list the things that I'm going to be starting indoors. So, and that for me, that'll be in September with the thought that I'm going to transplant in October. So I'm gonna be starting broccoli indoors, kale, cauliflower, mustard, and Brussels sprouts. Now, these larger vegetables, they all like a lot of room. They get pretty big and spread out. So I like to give all these some good space, give them a good square foot per plant. So that kind of helps you think about where you want to put everything. If you go to my website, Summer Skye Gardens, or www.summerskyegardens.com, and you go to where it says shop, I have gardening guides that I have created that can really help you out in planning your garden. There are 5 guides. You can buy the whole bundle and get a few dollars off, or you can just buy an individual guide if you want. So I have one on square foot gardening, which tells you 1 broccoli plant per 1 square foot. So that's kind of good to know about spacing. There's one on companion planting, so it kind of tells you what things go well together and what things do not go well together. There is one on crop rotation, so that's to think about from season to season, year to year, how you want to plant things after each other, rotate your space. This is to minimize disease and pests. And then my last 2 are all about fertilizing. So there's one on fertilizing vegetables and one on fertilizing fruits and nuts. So it just tells you, hey, is there anything you want to do to the soil before you plant? Or once you've got it planted, do you need to do any fertilizing afterward? What do you want to use and how often? When I first started gardening, I would be looking up all of this info and all of these different books, you know, which you can find, but it was so time consuming. And a lot of it by now I remember, but some things I don't, and I still have to go look them up. So I was like, surely there has to be a way that I can condense this info into something like really quick and easy to reference. So I created these guides for myself. I was using them with my clients when I was doing garden design, and I have put them up for sale on my website. And I think that they're super helpful. They're very simple, easy to use, quick and easy. I've laminated mine so I can take them out to the garden if I want, get them dirty and just wipe them off. But you can buy them in my shop. It'll come to you as a download. And for you guys watching this video, if you type in the coupon code FALL, you'll get it at half price. So normally each guide is $7, so you could get it for $3.50. Or the bundle, you'll get it half price as well. So I hope that maybe you'll consider checking those out. So let's go back to the plants. So for the broccoli, I am going to be growing 3 different types. And I did this, I've done all these before. I like the purple peacock. I just think it's so pretty looking. It grew okay for me the first year I tried it. But we did have a pretty warm winter. So overall my broccoli wasn't like super great. But the year before it was, so definitely going to be trying this one again. And then just have like an imperial broccoli, which is kind of just a basic broccoli, and then a calabrese, which is kind of more longer stem-like. Most of these are going to say, usually it's about 120 days, 90 to 120 days. Let me see if it says up here. Oh, 71 days. So that's for like the hybrid broccoli. I don't think the Baker Creek seed packets put it on there, but usually it's a few months. So like I said, starting all these indoors. And I like to do these in successions because I don't need a whole bunch of broccoli all at once. So I'll plant a couple, and then, you know, a couple weeks later, plant another few, a couple weeks later, plant another few. So that way, hopefully by the time that they're, you know, making the broccoli, then it'll kind of be staggered and I don't have a whole bunch all at once. So that's another thing to consider is succession planting your vegetables, or just planting different varieties that will mature at different days. So always something to play with. I'm going to be growing this Russian red kale. I'm not a huge kale fan, but I do like it in certain dishes, and I thought this would be a fun one to try, this red kale. I grew kind of a basic one a couple years ago, and it didn't grow all that great, but I direct seeded it, so I'm going to try to start this one indoors. I'll be growing just a basic cauliflower. I'm going to do a handful of these, and like I said, I'll succession plant these just like my broccoli. Starting this one indoors. And all of these packets where you see like these pretty pictures, these are from Baker Creek. The Johnny seed packets are like this, which unfortunately don't have pictures, but they do have them on their website. Okay, another plant that I'm gonna start indoors is mustard. I've grown mustard before and I like this giant red mustard, so I'll start that indoors. And then I've never actually grown Brussels sprouts, so I'm gonna try. I've had these seeds for a couple years. I'm going to try them out this year now that I have actually more room, because I've expanded my garden space and I'm growing all vegetables since I can grow all my flowers at the cut flower farm. But I'll just be trying kind of this basic Brussels sprout, starting it indoors and then transplanting it outside. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that most of your cool, warm to cool season plants will be able to handle at least a little bit of frost and maybe even slightly freezing temperatures, but have some kind of plan in place for if it's going to freeze. Is there anything that you need to protect, and how are you going to do that? Here where I live, we might get 1 to several freezes that might last for 1 to a few nights. I have some hoops and some frost cloth, which is really easy for me to run out there, put the hoops in, clip the frost cloth down, and that works perfectly fine. It never really gets super freezing temperatures, maybe mid to high 20s here. If that low. It actually, last year we only had 1 freeze in December, which was a really bad freeze, and it lasted for 5 days, but after that it never froze again. So just something to think about, and you can kind of look up like the cool hardiness of each plant so that you know, hey, do I need to, you know, cover this at a certain temperature. Now, the plants that I'm going to be direct seeding, I'm going to try these snap peas. I have grown peas before, but I always spring planted them and then they would die when it got too hot because they usually like kind of like a warmer climate. So I'm going to try to fall plant these and overwinter them. They can handle cold temperatures. They don't like to freeze. So I'm just gonna see what happens, see if I can grow some, because like I said, we usually have a pretty mild winter. So I'll be direct seeding these outside. And usually the stuff I'm gonna direct seed is gonna be mostly in October, once it's at least like a little bit cooler, because it's still 100 degrees in September. Another thing that I'm gonna direct seed is onion. And I'm gonna try this variety Texas Early Grano. I've tried a different variety of onion before that did not do well here with our hot climate. So I'm gonna try this one. Is originated in Texas. So I figure if I live in Texas, hopefully it should grow well. It's a short day variety. So, you know, we'll see, but I'm gonna direct seed that one. All right. My next one I'm gonna grow is, of course, carrots. They're my favorite vegetable. My kids love them. My husband loves them. So really can't grow enough carrots. And this year I'm gonna be trying a bunch of different varieties because I've yet to find one that's really like the carrot. And carrots here could be tricky. They don't like a very rich soil. So usually when I go to plant them, I might put a teeny bit of compost and that's it. I don't put any fertilizer. And like I said, they take a lot longer here than you would think. So I like to actually seed these in September, and then I may not be eating them until February or March. But the varieties I'm gonna be growing are the Muscade, New Carota, Amarillo, which is more of like a golden color, the Napoli, Mokum, and Parisian, which are like these cute little short chubby carrots. Cool thing with carrots these days is they have all these varieties that are like different colors, different shapes, and different days to maturity. So you can really go crazy with growing all different types. They have yellow carrots, red, purple, of course orange. So it's kind of cool to see, you know, some different ones, but definitely plant these in successions. You can plant carrots really close together, so it's a good bang for your buck. But of course you don't want to have, you know, 200 carrots pop up all at once. Although, side note, carrots do store really well for a long time in your refrigerator or in your cellar, but I will be succession planting these probably every 2 to 3 weeks for, I would say, probably about 2 months. All right, the next thing that I'm going to direct seed will be radishes. Now, I'm not a huge radish fan. I do like them here and there, but I just think they're so easy to grow. They're fun. My kids love going out and pulling them out. So I think it's super fun to take these and really be more of like a kid project where they can go plant them, watch it grow, and then go pull them out. Not that they're actually gonna eat a radish, but it's kind of a fun thing for them to do. So I grew these China Rose ones before, really classic taste, pretty pink color. This year I'm gonna try this Malaga, which is like a dark purple color. And then I got these free seeds from Baker Creek, a wasabi, which is like the spicy one. So maybe I can use these in some sushi dishes, we'll see. Next plant that I'm gonna direct seed are beets. I actually really like beets, but my kids and my husband do not. So I might just be growing these for me, but I'm gonna do kind of the classic, you know, dark red color, this Detroit dark red. This one's from Burpee. And then I'm gonna try these golden beets because I think the color's really pretty, and I've tried some different colors, usually have a little bit different flavor. Now, a quick note as well on these root crops, specifically like radishes and beets. Number one, they grow really fast, so you can just keep planting them and planting them and planting them for months on end. And they're really good to kind of space around your bigger vegetables. So if you have like a big broccoli plant, you can kind of put little radishes or beets around it and kind of tuck them in. And that's a really good way to use intensive planting to maximize your space. And then of course, you know, you can pull them out, plant some new ones, and just keep popping them in and out. So that's what I like to do is, you know, I'll have maybe a section devoted just to them, but then if I have any little open space, I'll just stick some radishes, beets, maybe a few carrots, kind of in those areas. All right, and lastly, as far as vegetables go, are all my greens. So my lettuces and different types of like greens that you would eat by themselves or in a salad. I like to do a lot of different variety. I might grow just like 1 or 2 plants of each, because especially when I eat a salad, I like to put a lot of different stuff in there. And then some of this stuff we don't eat all the time. So I like to do a lot of different things. And the cool thing about a lot of these lettuces is you can plant them really intensively and you don't have to harvest the whole plant. So when you have a lettuce plant that pops up, I mean, sure, you can pull the whole thing out, cut the roots off and eat it, but you could just go through and cut a couple of leaves and it'll keep growing. Or you can actually top it where you just, if here's the plant and here's the root, you just kind of clip the top of it as if you're giving it a haircut. You go eat that. That root stays with that little base and it'll actually just regrow. So that's kind of a cool thing about a lot of these greens is that they'll keep growing and growing until the weather conditions are not optimal for them to grow anymore. So let's see, some of the greens I'm going to be growing Swiss chard, and I like this kind of rainbow color. Going to be trying some spinach. Spinach can be a little tricky here in the Houston area just because spinach likes it cold, and sometimes we don't have a cold enough winter, but I'm going to try it. Komatsuna. This was actually a free seed that I got, but I grew it a couple years ago and it was really good. So I'm going to be growing it again. Let's see, definitely some arugula. Love the spicy taste of arugula. Mizuna, that's another one that I got for free, but once again was pretty tasty. These type of greens, I actually, and mustard, the komatsuma, I actually like to cut these up and saute them in some olive oil with like a little bit of garlic and just eat it like that, and it's actually really good. And then of course all my lettuces, so I like this pretty Merlot color. Bib lettuce, which is like kind of the really big flat leaves, usually tastes slightly sweet. Butterhead, which is like your classic green lettuce. This romaine rouge, which is a romaine lettuce that's kind of like a purpley green, really pretty. Tum Thum, which is like the classic ruffly lettuce. And then this cosmic crimson mix I really like because it does like a lot of different types and colors. So the last edible I'm going to be planting for my fall garden is actually a fruit, and it's going to be strawberry. So I've grown strawberries for years, and there's different types of strawberries. The ones that grow the best here in the South, where we have mild winters and hot summers, are June bearing. Now, I think the name's pretty funny because they don't actually fruit in June. By June, they're usually done, but they fruit once a year in like this big display. So you get all these strawberries for a couple of months, and then they kind of stop once it gets really hot, and they start to send out runners to make new plants. Versus some other types that are like ever bearing, they're trying to grow all year, but those type of strawberries really like a more moderate temperature throughout the year, and we just have too much of a swing. So if you're in the South, I would highly advise look up some June bearing strawberries. For me, the ones I've grown before that do really well are Sweet Charlie and Chandler. Both of those are like your classic big red strawberries, you know, slightly sweet. And what you do with strawberries is you plant a bare root that you order from a company. It comes in the fall. I usually order in September, and then I either plant them when I get them in September or October. The bare root that you get is gonna look dead. It's gonna be brown, you know, brown roots, little bit of a base, maybe like one slightly green leaf. You're gonna think it's dead, but go ahead and plant it. Within a few days, it'll actually start to green up a little. And by 1 to 2 weeks, it's putting out leaves. So don't worry, they will grow pretty fast. Now, strawberries I found like some room. So I usually do 1 plant per square foot, and you actually need a lot of plants to get a lot of strawberries. So I have an 8x4 bed, and I'm gonna be planting that all to be strawberries. So 32 plants. That'll get you a good harvest of strawberries every week. My kids love strawberries, of course. They love to go out and pick them out of the garden and eat them right away. And I'll tell you, a fresh strawberry straight from your garden outside is way better than what you're gonna get in the store. So yeah, those will be going in. And you know, as far as any other types of fruit you might wanna grow in the fall, if you're in the South, you know, things like citrus or any kind of pit fruits like plums, apricots, peaches, you can certainly plant those kinds of trees in the fall or the winter. Since we have milder winters, they usually do fine, and that'll give them enough time to establish roots before the heat of the summer. If that makes you a little nervous, then just wait until late winter, early spring, maybe like February or March. But some stuff does not do well here. Things like grapes and avocados like a more moderate temperature. They like warm to hot days, but cool nights. So here in South Texas, we do not get that. So they don't grow well here. And then apples, there's only a couple of varieties that grow well in the South. Most of them like a lot of chill hours, which you're gonna get more north. So, you know, if you're wanting to try like an apple tree, just be careful on the variety and don't trust just because it's being sold at your local Home Depot doesn't mean it's good for this area. So just do your homework a little bit. All right, and the last thing that I wanted to talk about are these little flowers that I'm going to be planting throughout my vegetable garden, and that's all my violas and pansies. Cool thing about these is, number one, they don't mind the cold. They can take freezing temperatures. They're super easy to grow. You can actually eat them. So if you want like a cool addition to your salad, or people really love to freeze these in ice cubes and make like a really pretty drink with that, or people will dry them and put them on cookies or cakes. So there's a lot of different uses for these. I think they're super cute. I love to press them and save them for different crafts. So I'm gonna show you the different varieties I'm gonna do. This celestial blue pansy. And basically these I just pick because I like the color. This Swiss giant, which usually is a lot of different varieties. This Arkwright ruby, which you can see here, they actually made some like shortbread or sugar cookies. I've done this before, and using the pansies and violas is a really fun way to do it. Typically the violas are a little bit smaller than the pansies. I have this Berna velvet blue. This florist mix, which is a lot of different colors, and I really like these. Have this really punchy yellow center. I think they look so happy. This Bowls Black, which is like a really dark color. And then the Chicky Chicks, which are so cute, and they have the little stripes inside that makes it look like they really have little faces. Every time I see these, I think of Alice in Wonderland, where the flowers are all singing. But I think they're so cute. All right, guys, that is it. That's everything that I'm gonna be growing for my fall/winter veggie garden. I hope this was helpful. Maybe it gave you some good tips and ideas for planning out your garden. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if this is your first time here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.
Caroline, what are you getting? You gonna eat strawberry?